So by now, you know, the latest college football playoff selection committee rankings are out. And I really don't want to rant and rave and scream and have my face turn all red and come close to cursing and then have to stop myself and then have some people laugh at me and some people say, why are you so mad? And other people say, yeah, get them mad, and be all divisive and all. But I just know as I move through this and I start talking about it, my nature is I'm going to get more and more perturbed as I talk about it, and I'm going to get red-faced, and I'm going to yell and rant, and some of you want that. So just, it's coming. Just be patient with me. So Ohio State remains number 1, LSU 2, Clemson 3, Georgia 4. That remains the same. Utah takes over Alabama's spot. They are now the 5th-ranked team. The big winners from Alabama's loss, Oklahoma and Baylor, really. Oklahoma moves up to 6. Baylor jumps up to number 7, up 2 spots. So Baylor, Oklahoma, the winner of that Big 12 championship game, has itself really in a good spot if they're impressive, because either one would have a win over 6 or 7 as it stands, while Utah will play number 13 Oregon on Friday for the Pac-12 title. Bama fell to 12 after their loss to Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Wisconsin, because they went on the road and beat a very overrated Minnesota team in the snow, they get to go up to 8. Minnesota fell, well, it doesn't really matter where they fell. They fell to 18, but it's irrelevant. Another week of rankings. Another fruitless exercise. And another chance for us to recognize how absurd this is. Can I remind you that last week our friend Rob Mullins, not really our friend, I don't like him at all, I don't know him, but if I did, I wouldn't want to even talk to him. He looks like a gigantic nerd, and he's sitting here trying to pass off things like the defensive piece. But last week, Rob Mullins mentioned that it was, you remember this, the defensive piece why Ohio State was ahead of LSU.
It was the defensive piece. They're obviously both very good on the offensive side. And this week the committee felt that win over Penn State, again, solidified that Ohio State's a little better on the defensive side of the ball.
This week, the committee decided win over Penn State. Ohio State's a little better on the defensive side of the ball. Okay. Defensive piece. Well, this week, Ohio State allowed 400 yards and 30 points to Michigan, while LSU held Texas A&M to 7 points and under 200 yards, and you didn't flip them. But this week, the defensive piece. And didn't you say, Rob Mullins, that each week we go out there and it's a clean slate every week?
Well, when you step into that committee room, we spent considerable time debating those, as we have every week. And, you know, now in our 1st and 4th rankings, you got Ohio State at the top, and the 2nd and 3rd, you have LSU at the top. So, again, it just confirms that we start with a clean sheet. And, again, that win over Penn State and how consistent.
Rob Mullins starts with a clean sheet every week. And a week ago, the defensive piece is what put Ohio State ahead of LSU. Well, Rob, if you started with a clean sheet this week, how could any red-blooded human deduce that Ohio State's defensive piece was better than LSU's defensive piece this week? Rob, are you considering the full body of work, or is it really a clean sheet every week, Rob? Oh, by the way, Rob, Alabama, with a backup quarterback, goes on the road against Auburn and loses by 3 on a doink at the end of the game in what was a pretty wackadoo final 6 minutes or so. And they dropped 7 spots. 7! 3-point road loss against a ranked team in a wackadoo setting. 7 spots they dropped. Meanwhile, Michigan gives up 56 at home. 56! They drop 1 spot. Huh? One team goes on the road and loses by 3. Another team at home gives up 56 and loses by 4 touchdowns. And they drop 1 spot. Okay. let's look at the other schedule wins. Wisconsin, they're a spot ahead of Florida. Of course, Ohio State beat Wisconsin. LSU beat Florida. Wisconsin 8, Florida 9. Both are 10-2. That's plausible, right? How about Wisconsin losing on the road to a trash Illinois team and then getting skull-drugged by Ohio State? Florida goes on the road and loses to number 2 and then goes to a neutral site and loses to number 4. Yet somehow you've got Wisconsin ahead of Florida. In what reality does this make sense? You want more? How about this? Cincinnati, that of the top 19 wins criteria of a week ago. You all remember that, don't you? Well, they've got 4 top 19 wins. Huh? Well, Cincinnati, they lost to Memphis this week, and they dropped. Boy, did they plummet. 1 spot from 19 to 20. By the way, if you are going to sell me Cincinnati as a quality win, get the hell out of here. You can kick a whole bag of rocks straight to hell and back. Because if you're going to sell me on Cincinnati being a quality win and why Ohio State in any way has any consideration of being voted ahead of LSU because of Cincinnati, you can go kick a bag of rocks straight to hell and back. Cincinnati. What you have done is you have said to every athletic director in college football, hey, it's better if you schedule this trash little junior high team from the American Athletic Conference and beat them 42-0 instead of scheduling a Big 12 school going on the road in week 2 in front of 100,000 people in a national television audience and fighting a bare knuckle fight and winning that game. It's better for you to go stay at home and play Cincinnati and beat the crap out of them instead of playing Texas on the road. Told y'all I was going to yell. You want to know I have a problem with this? Because this is the system they're jamming down our throat. And it took LSU being involved for me to be able to stump like this. Because if it was Baylor or TCU or if it was Washington or Oregon, you wouldn't care. But you care now because it's your school getting screwed. You go on the road and beat Texas. You beat Florida. You beat Auburn. You go on the road and beat Alabama. You put A&M in a 4-hour chokehold. And they're going to sit here and tell you Cincinnati is a reason why. Y'all, this committee will do whatever it wants to do. And they'll explain it later. They have zero accountability. They have zero parameters. And you have been sold the sanctity of college football's regular season, which is the biggest pile of garbage. And it makes me so sad when I see intelligent people that I respect buy that nonsense. Do you mean to tell me last week we saw 2 sub-500 teams play in the Egg Bowl? People were going bonkers. Players are crying. You mean to tell me if we expand a playoff to 16, that's going to stop mattering to people? What the hell's wrong with you? But here we go. We've got a little committee up in a room talking about game control and turnover margin and strength of schedule and strength of record and the defensive piece. Have you actually looked at who is on the selection committee? Have you actually looked at who is on the college football playoff selection committee? I mean, it is ludicrous. We are looking at a group of people that includes the AD from Oregon, the AD from Iowa, Frank Beamer, Paola Bovine, who's a professor at Arizona State. Do you realize this? Paola Bovine. She is on the committee determining who's going to play for college. A professor at Arizona State is one of the 13 people with supreme executive power determining who's going to play for college football's national championship. Joel Castiglione, Ken Hatfield, Chris Howard, the president at Robert Morris, Ronnie Lott's in there. Why not? You got to give it some credibility, right? Throw a name people know. Ray Oderno, the former chief of staff from the Army. God bless. Thank you for your service. Why are you determining who plays for college football's national championship? Go to break, Musso.
AFR.